Let me explain something to you. If you guys know the electron theory, right? The electron theory, there are some tests you can run yourself because you listen, don't get all, let me see, how can I put this? You don't have to sample this yourself, right? I'm going to just tell you about something. There's an experiment you can do yourself. It's an experiment, not with esoterics or anything, just with you and electronics. Now, I'm going to tell you something here. I want you guys to listen. You can directly affect the processor of your computer based upon your emotions and your will. Do you know that? Do you know that? Every single computer has a, let's call it an internal trash can. And what it does is it takes number overruns, and it dumps it into this waste basket. They can only be zeros and ones. When you're feeling positive and you have a strong will behind you, right? It is natural for anybody who would investigate your computer to go and find a bunch of ones. If you're feeling negative or you're depressed in any way, it is natural for any computer scientist to go into your computer, pull up the logs, and find a bunch of zeros. This happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is consistent from one person to another. It takes no special ability whatsoever. And here's what's happening. You are constantly emitting your intention, which is part of your will, right? And your emotional state of being. You're constantly transmitting this. It can actually be captured from the air by electronic devices, and it can be discerned or multiplexed into quantifiable data or usable data, right? So somebody can actually probe to see what the mood of a room is. That's a fact. That's not, esoterics. It's not dealing with ghosts. It's because your neurons are constantly emitting pulses, electrical impulses. They're constantly emitting an electric field with that also. They're constantly affecting all the atoms around you are being effective, and you're doing it. You're causing them to either be polarized in one direction or the other. When you're feeling negative, right, they're polarized in relation to the environment around you. They're almost, let's just say, they're pointed straight down when you're negative. When you're positive, they're pointed straight up, right? This would be the difference of north and south when you're dealing with magnets, positive and negative when you're dealing with electrons, right? And that can actually be read. And this happens all the time. For example, some of you guys, you found this out. It's not, it has nothing to do with any ghost or anything else. But when you're negative, light bulbs burn out, don't they? When you're negative, your anything you have that's electrical can break. It can not work right. You can interrupt the electron flow very easily when you're negative, right? When you're positive, you can actually notice, everybody can notice that, especially LED bulbs, they'll burn at a higher current. You can actually increase the current flow of a circuit when you're positive like this. Now, that sounds so weird, but I want you to think about something. You're essentially made up of metals. Do you guys know this? Do you know you're made up of metals? Do you know that when a person dies, the normal cause of death is an aneurysm? And an aneurysm is actually a copper deficiency. It means that the veins lost their elasticity, right? So they have a copper deficiency. You have copper, silver, titanium, zinc. You have all the metals in your body. In fact, all the elements of the earth are in your body. They're in your body. And so essentially what electrons are doing in your body is traveling from one area to the other. Even your cells can send off a zapping pulse of electricity when they're in trouble, right? They also have chemical signaling. So your body uses chemical signals, right? Instead of like a radio signal, your body uses chemical signals, but your brain uses electric signals. Do you know that? Electrochemical signals are what your body can produce and yield a pretty high value, to the point where you can put a tab on your head, somewhere on your head, and your thoughts can be discerned. That's a BCI, brain to computer interface, right? Some of the guys right now, they'll plug something on their heads and they'll control their cell phone with it. right? They're about, how much are those things? About $200. So you dial your phones and answer messages and everything else, not by looking at something, but by thought. They already mapped out your waveform, your brain waveform. And they have already mapped out language from your brain. They've mapped out memory from your brain. They've mapped out emotional states from your brain. So now they can interpret by way of a computer how you feel, what you're saying, and what you intend to do. They've been doing this for a long time. It's why the new Generation 6 fighters, they don't have controls. They don't have controls because the pilot's going to be in a type of pod. So when he goes through high Gs, he can be totally pressurized, not pass out, right? Or they're going to have to take the pilot all the way out. At any rate, some of your drones that are flying right now are flying not autonomously as you would think, but somebody's wearing a helmet, and whatever their thoughts are being translated into flight maneuvers, right? And in actions of whatever the actions are, letting off chaff or missile or something like that. But they're flying it without their hands, is what I'm telling you. And that's a pretty nice system they have going there. It's not miracle electronics or anything else. It's simply reading the impulses coming off your head, coming out of your body with everything you do. Right? It's why animals can pick up on things. It's not that they're, animals are not sensing what people think they are. Animals can smell chemical changes. Animals are very sensitive to electronic pulses, right? So if you change, so will that animal. The animal can see in a way that you wouldn't believe, right? But this is happening all the time. So when it comes to spirits, a spirit is nothing more than the essence, right? That, let's say, the main charge of life itself. And so a spirit can easily manipulate electronics. In fact, that's how you do it by way of the spirit. Here's what's funny. You take when a person dies, right, and their brain is still living and their heart is still pumping, but they would be considered not in a coma or something like that. Guess what? No emissions. It's almost like their soul is not there all the time, but there are bursts to a coma patient. They'll have bursts that they pick up, right? And normally when they go back and talk to the person, if the person can remember, certain parts, they'll say, well, I left and I saw the whole hospital and I went to every single room, and they'll describe things that nobody else could know unless they've been there. Right? Now, that may seem wild to a lot of people because they've been watching too much television. But if you sit down and think about just a few simple things, right? It takes all this fanciful stuff that sounds like fantasy. It puts it in a very different category. And then that's when you really start learning a few things.